Have you ever wondered what truly lies beneath the surface when it comes to the intimate desires that women carry silently, tucked away in the shadows of their minds? Not the obvious clichés or the loud proclamations society hands us on a silver platter, but those subtle, almost invisible longings that flicker quietly in moments of vulnerability. What if I told you that many of these desires are so deeply rooted in our shared human psyche, echoing ancient patterns of connection and wholeness, that they often go unspoken not because they're taboo, but because naming them feels like stepping into a secret room where even we hesitate to enter? This isn't just about physicality or fleeting pleasures. It's about something more layered, more profound, and yes, sometimes uncomfortable to admit. I want you to hold on to that thought as we explore 5 things women crave in bed but rarely voice out loud. And before you think this is just another list with shallow tips, let's start from a place that Carl Jung would appreciate. The interplay between our conscious selves and those hidden parts that quietly shape our emotions and connections. Imagine a woman named Clara. She's 29, a software engineer living in Brooklyn. After long days filled with coding and endless Zoom meetings, she craves connection not just for comfort but for something deeper, to feel seen beyond her professional identity. One night, after a stressful week, Clara's partner tries to initiate intimacy hurriedly, eager to check off the box rather than truly engage. Clara nods along but feels an emptiness creeping in, a disconnect not of bodies but of souls. What she didn't know was how much she yearned for what Jung might call an experience that aligns with individuation. The process of becoming whole by integrating all parts of oneself, including those hidden desires she barely acknowledged herself. That night made her realize intimacy is less about technique and more about presence and authenticity. So here we are, standing at the threshold of understanding those silent cravings. One thing many women deeply desire but seldom say out loud is to be truly held, not just physically wrapped in arms but held emotionally and psychologically in their entirety. This kind of holding goes beyond mere touch. It means being fully witnessed without judgment or expectation. To be held in this way is akin to having your inner landscape honored as much as your outer expression. Why does this matter? Because beneath the surface of everyday interactions lies an archetypal dance between the masculine and feminine energies inside us all. A dynamic Jung talked about extensively through his concept of anima and animus. The feminine archetype longs for receptivity and attunement. When this isn't met authentically in intimate moments, feelings of isolation can grow even amid proximity. Let me share a moment from a friend named Sophie. She's 34 and teaches literature at a university in Chicago. Sophie remembers an evening last winter when her partner sat beside her after dinner. Instead of diving into distractions like scrolling phones or watching television, which happened too often, he simply said, "Tell me what you're feeling." That simple invitation cracked open a space where Sophie felt safe to express not only surface thoughts but vulnerabilities she usually kept hidden, even from herself. And it wasn't dramatic. No grand gestures or elaborate scenarios were needed, just presence and willingness to listen without rushing toward solutions or distractions. Now, I know this might sound straightforward or even obvious, but here's where reality bites. Many people confuse physical closeness with emotional holding. The two can coexist yet are not interchangeable. You can have someone next to you while your mind races elsewhere, or worse, while anxiety builds because you fear revealing your true self might cause rejection. In psychological terms, being held emotionally taps into what Jung described as the need for validation from the shadow, those parts we hide because they clash with societal expectations or personal fears. When those shadows are welcomed gently rather than shunned or ignored during intimacy, they lose their power to isolate us. So how do you begin practicing this kind of holding? Here's a simple exercise for couples, or even solo reflection if you're on your own for now. Choose a quiet moment without distractions, maybe after dinner or before sleeping, and simply ask each other, or yourself, what do I feel right now? Not what I think I should feel or want others to hear, but honestly. Then sit with whatever arises without trying to fix it or explain it away. If that feels too vulnerable at first, start with less charged questions like, what was one thing today that made me smile? Gradually deepen the conversation as comfort grows. If you try this once or twice a week, notice how small shifts in listening and sharing affect your sense of closeness. Not just physically but emotionally too. It may surprise you how much longing there is beneath silence when genuine presence breaks through routine distractions. I remember trying something similar with my partner last fall after months caught up in work stress. A few minutes each night dedicated solely to acknowledging feelings without agenda. Those moments didn't solve all problems overnight, but they opened doors into spaces where both felt safer bringing up insecurities or hopes otherwise buried under daily demands. And here's an ironic twist. Sometimes wanting to be held emotionally triggers resistance because it clashes with learned beliefs about independence or strength, especially among women raised believing vulnerability equals weakness. Curious? That tension itself holds clues about deeper needs waiting for recognition behind cultural stories about what being strong means. Spoiler: strength often grows from embracing, not denying, the parts we fear showing others. Does this resonate? If so, drop a comment below sharing any small ways you've experienced emotional holding, or missed it painfully, and let's unravel these hidden threads together over time. Oh, and if you find this conversation meaningful, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps keep these nuanced topics alive with fresh voices exploring human complexity beyond surface-level chatter. To wrap up this first step, remember that longing for emotional holding isn't selfish or needy. It's fundamental to feeling alive and connected as human beings sharing intimate space. It invites us into honesty without fear and builds bridges between inner worlds otherwise left isolated by silence. More awaits ahead. 5 truths tucked quietly beneath everyday encounters that shape desire far beyond words spoken aloud. But before moving on, take a breath and maybe try tonight what Sophie did. Invite presence over distraction, curiosity over assumption, real listening over rehearsed responses. Because sometimes what we crave most isn't fireworks, it's simply knowing someone sees us fully. Even the pieces we hide from ourselves sometimes. It's curious how the intimate space between two people can hold so many unspoken yearnings, each one wrapped in its own subtlety. After realizing how profound it is to be emotionally held, there's another layer that often escapes mention but quietly pulses beneath the surface. A longing for freedom within connection. Sounds paradoxical, right? But stay with me. This craving is not about physical separation or emotional detachment. It's about feeling safe enough to be fully oneself without losing the thread of intimacy. It's a craving for a kind of spaciousness where one can express contradictory feelings, anger, doubt, confusion, without fear that these will fracture the bond. Think of it as an invisible elasticity woven into closeness, allowing movement without snapping. Let me tell you about Lena. She's a graphic designer in Lisbon, 27 years old, who recently entered a new relationship after years of emotionally intense but suffocating partnerships. Early on, she noticed how her new partner didn't rush to calm her anxieties or fix her mood swings but instead gave her room to breathe and move through them at her own pace. At first, Lena felt uneasy, like she was pushing the connection away by expressing discomfort or silence. But over time, this very freedom deepened their bond instead of breaking it. Lena shared once that this freedom within closeness became a refuge where she could unfold layers of herself she had kept tightly wrapped for fear of judgment or loss. Jung would see this as an interplay between individuation and relation, the delicate dance of maintaining your distinct self while merging with another. It challenges the common cultural narrative that intimacy demands constant agreement and harmony. Instead, it allows for tension and contradictions to coexist safely. Now here's a practical way to cultivate this freedom within connection. Try what I call the safe space pause. When you find yourself or your partner reacting strongly during an intimate moment, whether through frustration, silence, or neediness, pause before trying to respond immediately. Instead of rushing to fix or reassure, acknowledge the discomfort by saying something like, "I notice there's some tension here, it's okay to take a moment." This might feel awkward at first because we're wired for immediate solutions, especially when emotions run high. But by allowing space without pressure to change feelings instantly, you invite growth and trust deeper than surface comfort. If you're solo right now or want to start internally first, next time you feel conflicted emotions arise during intimacy, could be with yourself or others, practice sitting with those feelings without rushing to label them good or bad, or push them away. Notice what arises when you allow such spaciousness inside your experience. I recall once trying this with my own impatience during a conversation with my partner last summer. The urge to interrupt and solve was strong. But just naming the tension aloud and offering room made us both relax unexpectedly. The moment became less about smoothing everything out quickly and more about embracing whatever was present. Humor sneaks in here too, because sometimes this kind of freedom means tolerating awkward silences longer than feels natural, or laughing at ourselves for feeling so uncomfortable doing nothing. And yes, if you think about it long enough, isn't life itself full of these contradictory pauses where nothing happens except being? Speaking of contradictions brings me neatly into the third point many women silently desire in bed but hesitate to admit: being accepted wholly, even with imperfections that society tells us we should hide. It sounds straightforward until you remember how relentlessly culture polishes images of desirability into nearly impossible shapes. Imagine Naomi, 41 years old, a kindergarten teacher in Melbourne who struggled for years with body image issues intensified by social media pressures during lockdowns in 2022. She recalls one night when her partner gently expressed appreciation not only for her appearance but also for little quirks she thought made her unattractive. The laugh lines around her eyes when she smiled too hard. The way her hands trembled slightly when nervous. That acceptance wasn't just comforting, it was transformative. In Jungian terms, this relates closely to embracing what he called the shadow parts of ourselves, the aspects considered undesirable or shameful by external standards but essential pieces of our wholeness. Shadow integration isn't glamorous. It means recognizing those traits we hide even from ourselves, and finding love there anyway. Here's where practical work can deepen intimacy profoundly. Try what I call the mirror moment. Exercise with your partner, or alone if needed. Find a quiet space with a mirror and look into your own eyes for at least 3 minutes without distraction. As uncomfortable as it may feel initially, and yes, it often does, try affirming aloud small truths about your body or personality, parts you typically criticize but wish were embraced more kindly. If sharing this with someone else seems right, invite them to do the same and exchange reflections, not as flattery but as honest recognition of realness beyond perfection. Naomi shared that doing something like this gave her permission internally, and externally, to soften self-judgments that had built up over decades. And guess what? It rippled naturally into moments in bed where she stopped trying so hard to perform, and instead enjoyed presence fully, even on days when insecurity whispered loudly. Now maybe you're thinking, wow, that sounds intense. Fair enough. This isn't about forcing emotional acrobatics overnight. It's about small invitations toward authenticity that build trust slowly over time. And honestly, sometimes trying too hard backfires spectacularly. Which reminds me again how humor eases these journeys. Naomi joked once after her first mirror moment that she felt like confronting an old foe who surprisingly turned out just tired like everyone else under all the makeup. To get started gently on shadow acceptance, set aside 5 minutes today, stand or sit before any reflective surface, and choose one trait you usually dodge acknowledging. Could be freckles, restless hands, voice tone. Say its name softly aloud. I see you. Repeat if helpful until the initial resistance softens even slightly. If safe sharing feels possible later on, bring these moments up casually with your partner, not expecting solutions but simply revealing layers previously cloaked in silence or shame. When such honesty enters intimate spaces without fear or rush, it plants seeds for deeper connection rooted not in idealization but real human acceptance. These hidden cravings, to be free while connected and accepted even at our most vulnerable, are threads weaving through countless intimate encounters worldwide today. They shape desire beyond physical acts into shared vulnerability where real growth happens quietly beneath words spoken out loud. And since we're delving deep here already, if any part resonates with your experience or sparks questions on nurturing these delicate balances between freedom and closeness, or shadow and light, feel free to share down below. Engaging together enriches understanding far beyond solo reflection alone. Also worth mentioning, in case you're curious, I have a guide unfolding practical ways couples can explore these needs safely over time without pressure. No gimmicks involved, just steady steps toward deeper mutual respect if ever interested down the line. For now though, maybe try tonight creating some breathing room within intimacy rather than seeking answers immediately. Or dare looking more kindly at yourself in quiet moments. Because sometimes what women crave most is precisely permission, for themselves and from those they love, to exist fully without masks pressed tight against fragile skin. There's a subtle yet powerful desire that threads through the intimate spaces women inhabit but rarely voice, an unspoken wish to be truly known beyond roles and masks, especially in moments that feel most exposed. Not just to be seen, but to be recognized in the full complexity of their existence, the contradictions, the fears, the quirks, and the brilliance all bundled into one human being. This longing extends past physical or emotional presence and touches on something deeper. An invitation to be encountered as a living narrative rather than a fixed image. Let's look at Maya's story. She's 36, a nurse from Atlanta juggling night shifts and family life with grace that few outside her circle see. Over years, Maya learned to present strength, calm, capable, unshakable, to everyone around her. But intimacy revealed a different truth. When she tried to share her exhaustion or doubts with her partner, she often felt dismissed or misunderstood, as if those cracks in her armor were unwelcome. One evening during a quiet moment after work, Maya took a risk and said simply, "I don't always have the words for what I'm feeling, but I want you to meet me wherever I am." Her partner paused and responded not with solutions or reassurances but by holding space for her messy humanity. That moment became a turning point, a rare encounter where Maya felt not only heard but known. It didn't erase her struggles, but it knit something new between them. The courage to share ongoing stories instead of polished snapshots. This resonates strongly with Jung's idea that individuation is not about becoming perfect or complete in isolation but embracing our evolving selves within relationship. Intimacy then becomes a living dialogue where partners explore each other's unfolding narratives without trying to freeze them into neat categories. For anyone wondering how to invite this knowing into their own intimate moments, here's an exercise I find powerful. Try what I call the story exchange. Choose a comfortable time, maybe during or after shared quiet time, and take turns telling your partner, or yourself if solo, about something current that feels complicated or incomplete inside you. It doesn't have to be dramatic, even small uncertainties count. Listen without interrupting or trying to fix, your role is simply witness. Afterwards, reflect on what it feels like both to share and receive this raw storytelling. This practice fosters connection rooted not in idealization but in authentic ongoing discovery, a dynamic that honors growth alongside acceptance. I remember attempting this once with a close friend after months of surface-level conversations masked as closeness. The first few minutes were awkward, we stumbled over words and silences, but gradually something shifted. We weren't just recounting events, we were revealing layers previously hidden beneath everyday busyness. It felt like uncovering secret rooms inside ourselves where true companionship resides. And yes, embracing such vulnerability is no small feat. It pokes at our fears of rejection and exposes insecurities long buried beneath roles we've been assigned by culture or circumstance. But isn't it fascinating how these very fears highlight what matters most? To be truly known is also to risk loss. And yet many women keep this longing silent because they fear losing more than gaining by revealing their full story. So maybe that silence itself holds meaning, a protective veil guarding sacred yearnings waiting for gentle recognition rather than blunt confrontation. Now let me step back for a moment, and forgive me if it sounds philosophical, this silent craving for deep knowing connects intimately with how humans make meaning together. Stories shape identity more than facts do. They bind us across time and space much like Jung described archetypes weaving through collective unconsciousness. Not static symbols but living patterns echoing in our shared experiences. When intimacy invites storytelling without judgment or haste, it taps into these primal structures allowing healing where fragmentation once ruled. I won't claim this is easy or quick, it often involves setbacks and resistance from within and without. But its potential transforms not only relationships but individuals' sense of belonging in the world. And here's something else worth noting. This desire to be known fully transcends gender lines yet manifests uniquely in women due to layered social expectations around appearance, caregiving roles, emotional labor, and autonomy. Recognizing this nuance enriches empathy when navigating intimate encounters since what appears as reticence might mask profound inner battles balancing selfhood against external demands. If you're pondering how to start nurturing such knowing now, whether solo or partnered, try journaling brief stories about recent experiences where you felt partly hidden or misunderstood. Then consider sharing pieces selectively with someone trusted when ready. No pressure for perfect narratives. Authenticity blooms best amid imperfection. In closing these reflections on intimate longings whispered quietly behind closed doors, I want to offer something transformative worth holding onto. Intimacy is less about flawless performance or neat solutions than about embracing paradoxes within ourselves and each other. The push-pull of need for closeness paired with yearning for freedom. Strength entwined with vulnerability. Desire mingled with fear. This delicate balance challenges conventional scripts promising instant gratification through physical acts alone but overlooks deeper relational alchemy fueled by emotional honesty and mutual exploration. Imagine if we treated these silent cravings not as weaknesses needing correction but as invitations toward fuller being. To welcome shadows alongside light without shame or haste. To speak truths even when words stumble. To create spaces where ongoing stories breathe freely without demand for closure. Doing so doesn't erase pain or insecurity overnight. It opens pathways through them toward richer connection grounded in respect and patience rather than expectation or control. And perhaps most importantly, recognizing these desires as natural signals pointing toward wholeness allows us greater compassion, not only for others but crucially for ourselves when tangled between wanting love fiercely yet fearing exposure deeply. So next time you find yourself caught between wanting closeness but hesitating, or craving acceptance while doubting worthiness, remember Maya's simple plea: meet me wherever I am. That plea carries universal resonance, inviting us all into gentler encounters beyond masks worn daily. If there's one thread weaving through all these unspoken wishes, from emotional holding through freedom within closeness, acceptance of imperfections, culminating in being truly known, it might be this. Authentic intimacy flourishes not when we fix each other but when we witness each other courageously enough to hold whole stories unfolding imperfectly over time. Maybe it sounds idealistic? Sure, but also deeply human, and urgently needed amid modern lives fractured by distractions demanding constant productivity over presence. I invite you now, not tomorrow or someday, to lean toward curiosity over certainty tonight. Who are you willing to meet differently? What story inside you longs less for fixing, more for witnessing? These questions don't come with easy answers, but they open doors nonetheless. And sometimes opening just one door changes everything quietly beneath noisy surfaces, calling for connection beyond mere proximity. Thank you for walking this path here today. I hope these reflections offer not prescriptions but sparks lighting possibilities nestled inside all intimate moments waiting patiently for discovery. If any part touched your experience, feel free sharing thoughts below. Conversations like ours stretch understanding further than solitary reflection alone ever could. Until next time, may your encounters carry openness even when shadows stir. Because therein lies true courage. Meeting ourselves and others exactly where we are, even if imperfectly whole, for connection worthy of that authenticity is nothing short of revolutionary.